Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
Hey, everybody, what's going on? It's your man, Big B, Brien Hanley, along with Tim Fitzgerald. Welcome back to the Big 12 Insiders. Appreciate everybody being with us, man. We have got a good topic for you guys today. Talking about Big 12 football, it's got to start pulling its weight, Fitz. It can't rely on basketball, to stand up the conference. Football has got to it's got to be at the forefront. It's got to hold its weight. Not that it's not trying, but it has to do it now. There's no more excuses for what's going on. It's just, look, everybody knows that football is leading the ship with everything that has to go with college athletics. And the Big 12, look, they put us behind the eight ball, but you can fight your way out of it. But now you got to fight. And now it's time. There's no more Fitz just dilly-dallying around and hoping that it happens. So we'll get into it. But before we do, remember to like, follow, subscribe, continue to get in that comment section. And as always, hit the notification bell so let you know when Big 12 Insiders content comes out. So Fitz, first off, tell me what you think about that premise, that it's time for Big 12 football to start stepping up and hold its weight.
Let me back up and take a more global look at the Big 12. We know Brett Yormark is, I don't want to say infatuated, but very interested in what basketball can deliver for the conference. And I think because of that, I think he sees an opportunity for the Big 12 to close the financial gap using basketball. But it creates this perception that he wants it to be a basketball first conference. That's not true at all.
Right.
He's just being realistic about where football is right now, and the football rights money won't even come close right now in the Big 12. So there's a number of reasons why I agree with your premise. But, the first one just being you need to push back on this narrative, not with guys like us, and not even with coaches, but with the results.
Yeah.
If you've got a non-conference game against a Big Ten or SEC team, go win that. Although we've seen ACC have success against the SEC and the national media just ignore it. But that's a step. But you're right. The biggest step is get teams in the playoff and do something. Go win games.
Yep.
Because once you prove you can do it on the field, and this is going to be a topic I use at Go Powercat, with the video today or for tomorrow, it doesn't really matter how many draft choices you have on your team. That's not a measurement of a great college football team. It's a measurement of talent. But as I said in another video, Texas had 12 draftees and Arizona State had 1, but that guy was named Cam Scatterbo and he almost won that damn game.
Correct.
So that's not a fair measurement. But at the end of the day, Texas did win. That was a missed opportunity, but that's what the Big 12's got to do. And don't be fooled. The Big 12 will be football first. It's just basketball is going to be obviously a really effective sport for this conference.
Right. And let's take a look at that, as far as the basketball element of it. And I mentioned this at the beginning. Football's got to hold its water because basketball has done that. And basketball is going to continue to do that. I mean, nothing's guaranteed in this world, but if things just on the trajectory of what they are, look, yeah, the SEC had the best conference this year, but the Big 12 was right behind it and did just as much damage, in the tournament. And at the end of the day, it was an SEC team versus a Big 12 team, to win the national title. Now, you don't always have to measure everything by that, but those are good measuring sticks, that non-conference game. So Big 12 was right behind it. It was ahead of the Big 10 as far as basketball, and I think most sane people would tell you the same thing. But it's won 2 national titles in the last 5 years. So basketball is taking care of itself. Oh, by the way, you added Arizona. You added a BYU that is going to be better. I can't wait to see what BYU looks like this year. Utah is saying, you know what? We're better than what we have shown. We have got to be better. We want to compete in this conference in basketball. I mean, they made a coaching change in the season. They said, this isn't good enough. We're going to go hire somebody where it's going to be good enough. So schools are are trying to get better. They're like, we can compete in this thing. And if we're trying to compete, we got to do some things better. So basketball is doing its thing. Football, on the other hand, it just has to. Look, I've said this over and over again, Fitz. The TCU blowout to Georgia set the Big 12 back 10 years. And because nobody, and I heard you say this on your daily delivery over on Go PowerCat, nobody remembers that they beat Michigan to get to the title game. Not only does nobody remember it, nobody really cares because of how they got blown out. If that game's close, a 10, 14-point game, then people are saying, you know what, this TCU team wasn't as talented as Georgia, but you know what, they were pretty good. Look, they beat Michigan. They fought. They got to the college football playoff title game. They just weren't as good as Michigan. But nobody says that. Literally, nobody says that. The only thing they say is they lucked up, and then they showed who they really are, and they absolutely got annihilated. I'm not blaming TCU, so I don't want TCU fans getting in saying that I'm blaming them. But then on the other hand, yeah, I'm blaming you because you got your seat at the table, and what did you do with it? You literally pissed down your leg and made the entire conference look bad. Now, I mean, it is what it is. I can sugarcoat it all I want, but that happened. You know, I can't hide and try to finesse our way out of it because it isn't the truth. And if you know me and you've been watching this channel long enough, I'm going to tell the truth. That's what happened. It's ugly. And it set the conference back a decade. Well, now we got to build our way back. And the only way, like you said, to build your way back, it has to be successful on the field. And I don't think it's good enough anymore, Fitz, to say, well, we're close. I don't think it's good enough to say, well, we hung in there. Look, Arizona State did everything they could. Look, I'm still hanging on. They got a BS call at the end, but who knows what would have happened? Maybe they don't win the game anyway. But they could have stopped the 4th and 13, and to end the game. They could have done that, but they didn't. And that's what I'm talking about. Is like we have to finish. It's not good enough to be close anymore, because as the money and things start getting away from us, if we're not able to make it up in other places, the only thing that we can hold our hat on is results on the field, and it has to start now. We can't wait 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. In my opinion, Fitz, it'll be too late if we wait that long.
I agree. And I just want to point this out, that the Achilles heel of the Big 12 is it has a more narrow window than the other conferences because of a lack of depth. They got their guys. They can play at this level, whether it's Cam Scatteraboo last year or Max Duggan the TCU year. There's usually that focal point, that dude who picks you up and carries you a long ways. Well, that dude in the case of TCU, Max Duggan, was done. Yeah. By the time he got to Georgia, he was a shell of himself. He played his heart out. It was the most warrior-like performance I've ever seen in college football in that Big 12 championship against Kansas State. He was incredible, but he gave it all. And he wasn't the same against Michigan, and by the time he got to Georgia, it was a mess. That's going to be a problem for the Big 12. It's something in covering Kansas State we've seen over and over. You have a great season, you're playing well, then the injuries hit, and there's a bigger gap between your 1s and 2s than other schools' 1s and 2s, just the way it has been. But yes, the time's now. The playoff picture allows the opportunity for Big 12 teams to get in. And I said this last year that I think in some strange way, getting the bye was bad for the Big 12. They missed an opportunity to win a game.
Yeah.
At home.
Yeah.
And I think those things, I think just winning games is important for this conference. I don't care if it's in that round of, that first round of 8 games or 7 games. I don't care. Go win games on national TV against playoff caliber teams. Advance into the next round. Maybe now you have the momentum going into that game because you played. So I think it's going to be great for the Big 12 not to get a bye unless they legitimately have a team that you can say, that's one of the best teams in the country. But Big B, I don't see the national media ever stooping to that, to ever admit that. They'll keep a barrier there unless it's just obviously everyone else got a bad loss or 2 losses and they're unbeaten. I don't see the media doing that. Nope. So when given an opportunity, you got to deliver. And that starts this year. Why? Because that new TV contract isn't that far away. That new TV contract will start getting negotiated or feelers within the next 3 years. You got to prove that your worth isn't this huge Grand Canyon of a gap between you and the Big Ten and SEC. We know it's not true on the field, but in the world of perception, or world of media, and now what they've cast and a lot of fans believe is the Big 12 can't be competitive, that the 8th place team in the Big Ten or SEC would beat the champion. And that's just not true.
No,
I don't say that about the 3rd place team. Look, there's really good teams in those two conferences, but we just saw a really good team in Texas grope around and almost lose to Arizona State. Games are decided on the field, not on YouTube, not on newspapers. They sort it out on the field. And I think people are getting too wrapped up into the talk is what matters. The draft is what matters. The perception is all that matters, when really what matters is play the damn games. And that's why the Big Ten and SEC are moving to try to not schedule the ACC and Big 12 in the non-conference, because then they can't be proven wrong.
Yep, absolutely. And it's a theory. Look, we can say whatever we want about the Big Ten and the SEC. Oh, they're afraid to play us, all this stuff. But if the theory works, I don't think they care. And be quite frank with you, they shouldn't care, because it's working. If the popular opinion is, hey, they're not as good as us, and we don't want to play them. Why would we play them and give them an opportunity? It's working. And that's why when you do get your opportunities, you have to cash in. You got to win. And it stinks because the only time you're going to be able to get one of the bigger teams and play against them, you're going to have to give concessions. For instance, Arizona State, if they want to go and play an SEC team, it's not going to be a home and home. It's probably going to be 2 or 1 or 1 and 0. You're going to have to give concessions until you can get over the hump, and or you have to play a team. And again, it's to the Big 12's disadvantage. Arizona State, one of the best teams in the country and one of the better teams in the Big 12. Well, they're going to play a Mississippi State. Right. Well, why? I mean, and they did that. Don't get me wrong, but Mississippi State's not any good. We all know they're not any good. And that's what everybody will say. Well, yeah, you played an SEC team, but it was Mississippi State. They're not any good. So that doesn't really count. Although when you talk to them about it, it's always, well, Mississippi State would go to the Big 12 and they would just dominate it. Yada, yada, yada. Okay. So that's the perception. It works, and we're just going to have to fight through it. Sometimes you got to give some to gain some. It's what people always say, is that you got to spend money to make money. And this would be one of those things. Case that the Big 12 is going to have to spend some money in order to make money. And if that means you got to do 2 for 1 or 1-0, heck, maybe you go to Auburn in 2026 and then you go back to Auburn in 2030 and they never come to your place. That wouldn't necessarily be fair, but sometimes that's what you got to do, to make sure you get a seat at the table. I just think whatever they need to do it, and then make sure that, we got to handle our business. We got to handle our business because, again, like you mentioned, the contract's going to be coming up soon, and sooner than what people think, and you got to start getting on a more level playing field and be more attractive when that time comes around, because the status quo just won't cut it. Getting close, it's not going to cut it, and especially if you get blown out, that absolutely isn't going to cut it. And you can't rely, Fitz, again, you can't rely on basketball to hold the mantle. Big 12 has had just as much success as any other conference in basketball. But we know basketball is not where all the money is. It's just not. There is some there. Don't get me wrong. But football drives the ship, and you have to be at the forefront. And if you notice, Fitz, I'm not even mentioning the Big Ten, because while the Big Ten has that perception, I think the Big Ten, number one, I think they understand who they are. But most sane people, and I keep going back to sane people, most sane people, they realize the Big Ten is about as top-heavy as it gets.
Yep.
You get Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan wasn't even any good this year. Penn State, but anytime Penn State plays anybody with a pulse, they lose. So They know that they're top heavy and they get it. It's all about attacking and getting after the SEC to change your perception. Because I think if you beat a bunch of Big Ten teams, that isn't going to change your perception. I really don't believe that. I don't. Unless you just do it all in the playoff. I think you got to go after the king. And when you go after the king, you got to make sure you don't miss. And we did that with TCU. And not only did we miss, Lord, the king just put their foot on us and squashed us like a bug. We just need another opportunity. And the more opportunities you get, you got to cash in.
Agreed with everything. 100%. Maybe the Big 12 teams, let's say Kansas State. Offer Tennessee, we'll go to your place, and then we'll play you in Arrowhead in Kansas City. If you're Arizona State, maybe you make an offer to an Auburn or someone. We'll go to your place, and then we'll play you in Vegas. Or we'll play you the Cardinal Stadium, which isn't really, away game very much. It's in basically the same town. But you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Neutral and away.
Yep.
Maybe you can do that. And look, let's be honest. By playing a game in an NFL stadium, you might sell 20,000, 30,000 seats to the opposition that you couldn't sell at home. So there might be profit in that. I know you actually want home games, but you got to climb the ladder and you got to punch in someone's teeth to make them respect you. And I think that's probably a good way to go about this. But I think an interesting thing that people really don't talk about is the fact that these non-conference games are scheduled so far in advance. It wasn't that far long ago. Mississippi State was pretty competitive.
Correct.
So maybe that game was scheduled at that window and now they're trash. So you kind of have to have some fortune and that the teams actually are good when you play them and you get a bounce out of it if you beat them. But will teams be scheduling that far in advance in the future with the volatility of these TV contracts? You got another TV contract coming up in 5 years. Everyone's going to have this grand reset of college football. They're talking about maybe the ACC goes away, all that stuff. Okay. Then why are you going to schedule a game for 12 years down the road? Let's wait. Let's get on the other side of that. I mean, we don't want to schedule, let's pull someone out here. Wake Forest, thinking that that's a Power 4 institution, but in 12 years, it's not.
Right.
So it's a lot of moving parts here that make scheduling difficult, make it challenging to get these games. But, if Alabama calls up and said, hey, we got an opening in 2027, but it's only one game, home game, don't just automatically say no.
Correct.
Really stop and think about, how are we going to be? Is there an opportunity here? We've got an opening. Do we fill it with this? So you got to stop and think about these things.
Yeah. And again, it's just the more opportunities that you give yourself, the better off you'll be, and I know some might look at it as being the sacrificial lamb, going to some of these revenue or some of these venues and going down that road and being the guinea pig, but somebody's got to do it, and again, don't go in with the defeated attitude. Don't just automatically assume that you, number one, can't compete. I think that's part of the problem right there is perception that, we just can't compete. Woe is me. They just got so many more athletes. That's not true. First of all, they can only play 22 at a time. Okay. So that's number one. And yes, you can talk about the rosters and things that they can backfill and or as far as access to recruits. Well, NIL and the transfer portal is changing that. It literally is changing that. And in 3 years, who knows what it's going to look like? Who knows what it's going to look like? So I just think here's the opportunity is now. You got to jump on it now. You can't wait. Now, look, obviously we can't change what the non-conference scheduling is. You're just not going to be able to do that because it's like you mentioned, scheduled so far out. But I think all that's going to change. I really do, Fitz. I think they're going to start changing that as, everything starts rolling out and these new possible rules start coming out and new contracts. I think all that 5 and 10 year scheduling out, I think that's going to change.
Yeah. I don't see how you can do it anymore.
Yeah. I just don't see how it's possible. I said, but what you can do is when you get your opportunities in the playoff, you just have to capitalize. Look, I think a lot of people look at the Big 12 this year and say, yeah, they probably should have had 2 teams in. I think that's something that's going to happen this year. And I think the Big 12 has to take advantage, because I think what people are saying is, hold on a second. How did you not have 2 Big 12 teams in the tournament? Explain to me how BYU wasn't in the tournament and you had SMU there when they went to SMU and beat them. Explain that to me. And so now, you know how, look, the committee is the committee, whatever it is, but they're also human. And they're going to look at it and say, you know what? You're right. We should have had 2 Big 12 teams in last year. Let's go ahead and put 2 in this year. Well, great. Then now you got to take advantage of it. You can't go get blown out. You can't have a home game and get upset by somebody. None of that can happen. You have to put your best foot forward. Is it a lot of pressure, Fitz? Yeah, it is. But I would say this. You're not in, intercollegiate athletics because it's not pressure. Everything isn't easy. So, if it was easy, everybody would do it. So I just think you have to put your best foot forward, stand up, go win some games, improve the conference foothold, and see where, just basically where it all falls out. Just see where the chips lie. But give yourself an opportunity. Don't go in with the woe is me attitude. Oh, they've got so many. You just said it earlier. Arizona State had 1 guy drafted. Texas had 12. And a missed call away from advancing is what Arizona State was. So I'm just saying, it's on the field. You can make it happen. But I just think the more that we wait and the longer that it takes to actually put your best foot forward, it puts the Big 12 behind the 8 ball and puts them in a worse position.
Agreed with all that. And they just have to win and win now. And and in hindsight, while there was no easy way around this, it wasn't like teams from the SEC or Big Ten were yearning for opponents over the next 2 years. I think the cases of taking non-conference games that were booked before teams joined the Big 12, like Arizona, Kansas State, and turning it into a non-conference game, even though you're conference members, was a horrible mistake.
Yeah, horrible.
And I don't know if there's a way to correct that. I mean, maybe there just simply was no solution. But not getting an opportunity for programs such as that to be measured against another power institution outside of your league was critical, I think. Now, I think there was a solution. They just didn't take it. It was scheduling Washington State and Oregon State, because if I'm correct, they're playing each other twice this season.
Yeah.
So why couldn't that have been worked out somehow, where one plays one? It still wouldn't have moved the needle a lot, but you weren't playing yourself and denying yourself an outside measurement of some sort.
Right.
I don't know, man. You got to get these games on your books and go win them.
Yeah. Another thing is, before we get out here, is I also think, in putting the pressure on Big 12 teams, the schools that people perceive that are supposed to be good, they have to be good.
Yep.
Like Utah. Can't fall on your face like you did last year, Utah. It's unacceptable. You're a better program than that. You have to be good. Oklahoma State. Look, Oklahoma State said we're not going to do – they cleaned house, not just players, coaches, everything. You can't be bad. There's a lot of people that thought Oklahoma State was going to take a step forward and be the class of the conference when it came to football, and they completely fell on their face. Can't happen. Can't happen. Look, more power to Arizona State, BYU for standing up. And I'm glad they did. They need to continue moving. That only helps the conference. But the teams that the outside media, the outside the Big 12 think that are supposed to be good, you have to be good. Yep. We can't have you being the worst team in the conference, Oklahoma State, or the next worst team in the conference, Utah. That can't happen anymore. Okay? It's the more good teams that we have, especially the ones that are supposed to be good. Now, granted, it's college football. Anything can happen. You get an injury here or there, things derail you. But you shouldn't have been that bad. That's my whole point. Regardless of one injury, whatever, you should have been better. Things happen, though. I get it. Things happen. But now, okay, it's a new season. Time to be better. It's time to be better. And to me, Fitz, I think that also, we saw it in the rankings last year. They did everything in their power not to move Arizona State and BYU up, not just in the college football playoff rankings, the AP rankings. Usually the AP and the coaches, they're like, yeah, if you're undefeated by week 8, we're going to put you in the top 10. They did not for Big 12. They were just like, nah, BYU, nah, we're not doing it. We don't believe in them. It's just like, man, oh man. So I think that also has a lot to do with it as well, Fitz.
I still can't explain how the same people who, probably believe BYU didn't belong in for winning at SMU thought SMU deserved to be in the playoff. None of that adds up. But yeah, I mean, again, I think you put that quite well. Look, the Big 12 doesn't have any blue bloods. All the blue bloods have left. And now you have some pretty good brands. Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Utah, BYU. In football, those brands are known. And excuse me if I've left anyone out. I'm just quickly naming those. But 2 of them I just named stunk this year. So that hurts the perception of the conference because so many in the media, the voting, and even at the athletic industry now just get stuck on brands and blue bloods, and that's how they vote. And so when your brands aren't playing well, that must mean the whole conference is not great. And the irony being, Utah was, look, they're not happy as a whole being in the Big 12, but they brought a great football program. You couldn't pass on them. And yet with that performance, and it's got to get better this year, you would have been better off taking UConn, which is incredible to say. You would have had another Eastern team. You would have had more basketball power and about the same football results. If you're a Utah, you got to hold up your end of the bargain. And same with Oklahoma State. All these teams need to prove who they are early and perform well through the season. They just do. There's a narrow window for this conference to get through.
Absolutely. So, well, I appreciate everybody being in here. Thanks for taking the time, Fitz, to join us today. We will be back tomorrow. Remember, everybody, if you're not already subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Like I said, follow, subscribe, continue to get in that comment section. That helps the algorithm to get out to more people. So we appreciate you guys. We'll talk to you soon. Until then, see you later. Have a good one.
Thank you for watching the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. This has been a Spirit Street production.